States of America. Republic stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Director McLaren, Director Hernandez, Director Calandry, Director Martin, Director Paris,
Here.
Dr. Thompson,
Present.
Art Wells, and Mr. Parker.
And before we begin, I do want to welcome Jay Crimpley, the new director to East Kern Water Agency. Welcome, Jay, to, I think, maybe your first meeting. You're going to learn today about adoption of the agenda. Motion made by Kathy. By Brandon, any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. For non-agenda items, public comments for non-agenda items. Any hands on the screen? Stan, Julie, nothing you want to say? Okay. On consent agenda, we're on consent agenda item 6, financial report, payment of bills, minutes. Peter?
There's nothing out of the ordinary on the payment of bills, but staff's happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Any questions? Any questions online? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Kelly, I see you made a motion. Elena, need a second. Any further discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed. Minutes. I was going to say that for you, but anything of note? There's several. There's strong opinions on. But the questions about ticket. Okay, that'd be great. Thank you. Star. I mean, quite a consensus for minutes. Presentation 2023-2024 annual report. Financial report. I think our auditor is yes. Okay. And do we have ready?
We're online.
All right, so we have Jonathan from CJ Brown.
Good morning, Jonathan. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you right now. A while ago, it's a little bit choppy, but can everybody hear me right now?
We can.
Okay, sounds good. Would you like me to share my screen, or will you be sharing the PowerPoint?
Hang on. Yeah.
I think we're working on sharing the PowerPoint.
I think
Jonathan?
somebody put it in.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, yep, we have your PowerPoint up, and I guess you just tell us to proceed as we go.
Director Paris, I'm getting notifications that people aren't able to hear your mic. I'm not sure if you're having a mic issue or not.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
I'll set it on. Jonathan, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
those who are texting Brandon, if they can text, if they can hear me, thank you.
Yeah, for some reason, if my voice sounds choppy or something, let me know and I will try to speak loudly as I can.
Okay, So far, we hear you fine.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So good morning to everybody. So I'm here to present Watermaster's 2024 audited financial statements. So as always, we always follow professional guidance issued by AICPA for auditing standards. And we always follow or adhere to all federal state requirements. Also, our audits are based on accounting standards issued by Governmental Accounting Standards Board when we audit governmental agencies and other special districts, including Watermaster. Next page. Our audit reports, we have issued a modified or clean opinion where Watermaster's financial statements is indeed in accordance with U.S. accepted accounting principles. Next page. On your board packet, there should be a management report which concludes that when we performed testing of your controls, we have verified that Watermaster has proper checks and balances, and we did not find any issues whatsoever regarding your controls. So just want to commend AVEX team as well as the board for making sure that the board performs oversight of Watermaster's books. And I had a pleasure of speaking with Director Rob yesterday and with Peter, and it corroborated our understanding that there's no unusual transactions that have happened with Watermaster, and everything appears to be in order. So great job by management and the board. So financial highlights. So you can see here that we have a comparative statements of net position where your overall net position, it increased by $137,000, which I will explain more in the next slide. Okay, so your overall revenues, or total revenues, it increased by $215,000, which can be attributed to an increase in your replacement water assessments compared to a prior year, and imported water return flow. And your overall expenses, it increased by $155,000, which can be attributed primarily to an increase in your replacement water purchases. And there's a slight decrease in your legal and professional services. Next slide. So overall, we have issued an unmodified or clean opinion. Your net position or equity increased by $137,000. Both revenues and expenses, it increased by $215,000 and $156,000 compared to the prior year. Any questions you may have, I'll be ready to answer.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Jonathan, I think we're good. Thank you for the report. And Teresa, thank you for all the efforts to make this an outstanding audit for us. We appreciate you.
Thank you for
Jonathan, anything else before we go on to accepting and filing of the annual financial audit?
Again, thank you for having me today, this morning, and have a great rest of your morning.
Jonathan, thank you very much. Excellent presentation. and we'll move on to item 9. Is there a motion to accept and file the annual financial report for year ending 2023 and 2024?
So moved.
Motion made by Brandon,
Second.
second by Carolina, by short. Oh. So is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to accept and file the annual financial report for year ending 2023 and 2024, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. We're on item 10, discussion on investment account for the AV Watermaster. And that's going to be a presentation by Bob Scholl. And Teresa's up here. Hi, Teresa.
Okay, good morning, board members. So Bob Scholl is on Zoom. He's going to talk about the California class program and answer any questions for the board. He's the Senior Director of Investment Services with California Class. I'll give a brief introduction and then I'll turn it over to him. So today is information only, no action today, but after today's discussion, if the board wants to proceed in participating with class, then we'll bring a resolution to the next board meeting. So I wanted to recognize Patty for starting this conversation. And then her and I and Pete discussed several options and felt California Class was the best option for the Watermaster. You'll see some of the benefits on the slide, but some of the important factors were that it's a pooled investment program specifically for California public entities. There's no minimum balance requirement and it has same-day liquidity. So really no restrictions on the Watermaster funds or any potential for losses. So with that, I will turn it over to Bob.
Great.
Hold on one second. I got a question for you real quick.
Sure.
They've got experience with public entities, but really kind of aren't one because we're a court-appointed agency.
I did
So
check to
how
make
does
sure.
that work?
Yeah, so I did check to make sure that the Watermaster could participate, and we could. So maybe Bob has more information on the specifics, but I was told that the Watermaster could participate.
And do you know if they represented any other Watermasters?
That I don't know.
Okay.
The AVEC just.
eligibility
Recording
and
in
actually went to
progress.
our attorneys on eligibility, and there's no problem with Antelope Valley Watermaster being a participant.
Okay, thank you.
Hope that helps a little bit. But thank you, Teresa, for the intro. Yeah, just by way of background, if you're not familiar with a local government investment pool, it's really nothing more than a money market strategy, but one that's designed by the public sector for the public sector. It is in the form of a JPA, and the two founding sponsors of California Class were the California Special Districts Association and the League of California Cities. California Class was launched about 3 years ago, and as of today, we're at $2.1 billion in California Class with about 250 participating agencies. The other part of that story I wanted to highlight is I actually work for a firm by the name of Public Trust Advisors. And the way that works is when the JPA was created by the League and by the CSDA, an RFP goes out for service providers to the JPA, for instance, accounting, legal, etc. And an RFP went out because an investment manager has to be hired for the pool, an outside manager. And Public Trust Advisors, the firm I work for, was lucky enough to win that business. I wanted to stress that by a considerable margin, Public Trust Advisors is the largest manager of local government pools in the country. We manage nearly $150 billion across 23 states. And as part of those pools, we work with about 13,000 public agencies of all sizes, shapes, and varieties. As Teresa mentioned, California Class is ideal for short-term cash management. It is highly liquid, same-day liquidity. Like a money market fund has a rate of return that'll float on a daily basis. I think we posted a 4.37 last night. There are no termination fees, transaction fees of any sort. Public Trust is paid a flat fee to be the investment manager on California Class. From a credit worthiness and security standpoint, it's completely compliant with California Code 53601, and that's a term some of you might have heard. S&P actually has, Standard & Poor's has a group that monitors local government investment pools. They've been around about 40 years, these pools. And California Class has the highest rating possible from S&P for both credit quality and liquidity. I would say that if you were to talk to our participants currently, what you would hear is that the performance of the fund has been exceptional. When we launched 3 years ago, rates were near zero. We had that unusual run up to 5.5%. So it's been a great time to have interest income be a meaningful line item for public agencies in the state. But it's probably our ease of use that we're most known for. We have been a leader in technology meaning the portals that our participants, including AVIC and Teresa, use to move money back and forth, print customized reports, pull up the portfolio on a daily basis. The transparency is excellent. The technology is excellent versus some of the other options in the state for cash management. We just think we offer a very unique customer service model with the best technology. We also have a dedicated client services desk with 5 people in our home office that pick up the phone if there's an issue that needs immediate attention, handle service issues, et cetera. So we're very focused on not only the performance of the pool, but also on some of the qualitative aspects of what we do. And then lastly, we also try to be very value added. So, and I've had these conversations with Teresa, whether it's investment policy reviews, cash flow analysis, just dialogue on what's happening in the interest rate environment or interest rate markets or the credit markets, supporting our clients with whether it be board or committee presentations or city council presentations for our cities. We're just very hands-on and very present with our clients. So that's just a quick overview. I know Teresa handed out several of our marketing pieces a few days ago, but with that, I thought I would pause and see if there's any questions at all of the group.
I have a question for you. You guys have a ESG mandate, environmental, social, and governance. In my opinion, when it comes to financial stewardship and management, especially for a board like this, it comes down to profitability for our dollars and what we're doing. It gives me some concern when an organization such as yours has an ESG mandate where it could put some of those priorities in front of profitability and management of our money. How do you guys navigate that?
So I'm not sure where you're getting that information, sir. We do not have an ESG mandate at all in California Class. There's a product in the state by the name of CalTrust that at one point in time had an ESG focused fund that is no longer available. But at Public Trust, with any of the pools we've managed around the state, we've never had an ESG mandate.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to know if that was factual or not.
Sure. Yeah.
Good questions, Brandon. Any other questions?
I have
Go ahead, Carolyn.
Hi, this is Carolina Hernandez. I have a question regarding your board. And I see here that it is made up of public agency finance professionals.
Yes.
And that they're a member of the JPA. How are they elected and how often do they change?
Those board members are appointed and appointed by the initial sponsors, the CSDA and the League of California Cities. And that's typically a 3-year term for the board members. We currently have 2 cities and 3 special districts that make up the board, in total 5 board members. Relatively close to all of you, the city of Lancaster, and George Harris, who's the finance manager with Lancaster, is on our board as a city representative.
And you said they're 3-year terms?
Yes, typically.
Okay, and out of those 5 board members, are they rotating terms, or how do you determine, or do the terms all terminate at the same time?
They don't terminate at the same time. They are on a 3-year cycle. A board member may choose to continue that obligation as a board member. They may decide to terminate. It's actually quite flexible. It's really up to the board member.
Okay, and then they're appointed by the League of Cities and the California, I'm sorry, Special District Association, or?
Correct.
Okay, so how are they determined, the appointments determined by those 2 agencies?
Some of it is overall financial acumen in terms of the position that they have with their particular entity. It may be an individual that's had experience on similar boards. There's actually a total of 3 pools in the state of California. It could be their profile and experience within, for instance, the League of California Cities. Christina Turner, who's the city manager in Morgan Hill, is the other city board member who has extensive, I'll say an extensive resume and profile when it comes to, I'll call it matters similar to California class. So it's really a case-by-case decision.
So what I'm hearing is not an application process?
There is an application, and then there's a decision, yeah.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there's an application process, but consideration is given how? Because I'm hearing that you're talking about they have prominent roles within the California League of Cities oftentimes, but
or not so much prominent roles, but they may be individuals that are very familiar. If you take the league, for instance, and maybe they've been on committees within the league, maybe they've had prior experience with other pools. It's actually a relatively small subsection of people, whether it's in the city space or in the district space, that have a resume that, might fit to be on the board of a local government pool. There's certain things that we certainly look for, and certainly that Cal Cities and CSDA looks for.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay, Bob, thank you very much. Teresa, can you let us know what you're thinking about to present in the future regarding this?
My thought was to bring a resolution to open the account. Maybe after thinking about it, we should bring some investment policy document for the board to approve if we're going to have an investment account, just so we have something in writing on what the board's expectations are.
And why would we choose class over what we're doing now?
So talking through the money market, Citizens Bank is who the money market is with, and that's where the restricted funds are held. That's earning 10 basis points, so 0.1% right now. If we were to open another, so to answer your question, there's about 800,000 in checking that is earning nothing. The restricted funds are earning the 10 basis points. With opening the money market, we're only getting the 10 basis points, right? So we talked about CDs, your funds are tied up. There's early withdrawal penalties. Citizens Bank also has an investment account where they purchase treasuries. It would be within Citizens Bank, but then again, your funds are tied up and there's potential for losses if something happens. So that's why we're recommending California class, is to earn something on the money that's in the Watermaster account and do it safely.
And you're already using class through ABAC, and how's that working out?
Great. Their customer service is excellent.
Okay.
Anytime I've had an issue learning the process with them, they answer the phone and they're very helpful.
Okay, very good. And so the intent is this session was to educate us.
Yeah.
On our next agenda, you're going to put on a resolution for us to join, and you will be recommending how we do that and what amounts we put in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Any questions of Teresa regarding?
I do.
Please.
I think that if we are seriously considering making a change, then it would be good to have other options and look at other possibilities. We saw class, we saw the presentation, but it would be good to look at other options out there before we make a decision.
Okay.
And for my fellow board members, I sit on the finance committee for the Antelope Valley Fair Association. We were able to get some pretty favorable returns from Mission Bank on some money market accounts, as well as we did some investment accounts with Wells Fargo and Morgan Stanley, which are some local offices as well.
Okay.
It would be nice just to see what some other options and possibilities are as well. Nothing against this option here, but I think it's prudent to hear some other ideas as well.
Okay. So the next meeting will bring back options, not a resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to educate us a little bit more on what's available. And I know you have a lot of experience in OA that works with Mission Bank, works with some of the local banks, works with Wells Fargo. So you have a lot of experience with the groups that Brandon has mentioned. And I sat in on those same presentations at the fair, and that was helpful for us. They were pretty short, and I think it'd be good to educate the board on what else is available and then make a decision based upon that.
Okay.
But
Sounds good.
I think Bob did an excellent presentation.
Fantastic.
I heard him at our AVAC meeting, and I'm happy that we're having success with the agency and their public service is so good. So thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for thinking about this, Teresa.
Thank you.
Keep us moving. And Bob, if I didn't say so, thank you very much for the presentation, and we're moving along. Number 11, consideration possible actions to award bid for Rancho Sierra Properties, General Counsel.
Yeah, let me just give a little background and remind us where we were a month ago. Several years ago, we got in litigation with Rancho Sierra Properties for failure to pay their RWAs. We got a judgment from the court. We liened the property, and there was no recovery. There was no sale. The golf course was the only asset of the LLC. We have met in closed session on Rancho Sierra Properties for at least a year and a half. And then we were made aware of the interest of City of Lancaster in potentially purchasing that property. We had an open session last month where we solicited comments and input from the public about it and disclosed that there were two offers. There was one from City of Lancaster, which was approximately $151,000. And then an individual from the Antelope Valley had another offer. We are going to go into closed session and discuss the offers. And any vote will be taken there. But this is just a final opportunity for if anyone in the public wants to comment on Rancho Sierra Properties, this would be the time. I want to respond to the advisory committee's concerns about the lack of public information. This has been a confidential settlement discussion with Rancho Sierra Properties for a long time, so it hasn't been appropriate to go public with it. But we did want to disclose what the offers were and to solicit other potential offers. And this is the day the board reckoned that it would get to the bottom of what we're going to do with Rancho Sierra properties. So the lack of public information is a function of the confidential settlement discussions that have gone on. The advisory committee also raised concerns about what the money is going to be used for. I'll leave that to the board. I assume replacement water assessments will be a major purchase topic, and legal fees and costs recovery. There is concern finally by the advisory committee that there wasn't enough money in this to cover the outstanding obligation of RSP. But I think the point is the only asset is the golf course, and an appraisal's been done, and this is the fair market value. In fact, it's above the fair market value of the appraisal. So this is an open session for any comment, but the vote will be taken in closed session.
Great, thank you, Craig. Any board comment? Any public comment? Any hands raised? Okay, thank you for the presentation, Craig.
Welcome.
Brings us to consideration and possible action to approve Watermaster Administrator workflow and timeline. That sounds like that will be Peter.
It sounds like it, but actually that's going to be Craig. So
Craig.
There we go.
Let me see.
We have a proposed amendment to the rules and regulations requested by staff because of the concern of.
I'm sorry, Craig.
You want to take it back?
We're going back one item. So it's the Watermaster Administrator workflow.
Oh, that's yours.
Okay.
You've got the memo on it. I'll comment after Peter.
You're just trying to confuse me, huh, Peter?
The old rope-a-dope was there. Okay.
We can do that. So we had worked with council on what the process was for going out to RFP, RFP, and talked about the different stages and processes within that. What came out was really looking at when we initially did the RFP, we anticipated receiving multiple applicants. And so the hope was that you could use the RFQ to screen those out and then get down to a few choice applicants for the RFP process. We only got 2, so and we don't anticipate getting a large number this go around. So one of the things we discussed is we could probably streamline the process by eliminating the RFQ piece and moving straight to just an RFP. That will save time and money from a legal standpoint because Craig and Arden will be administering the proposal process. So we just felt like that the RFQ might not be a necessary piece and just costly at this point. So really what we have in front of you right now is to make the choice. Do we want to go back with the exact same process where we do RFQ and then RFP, or can we just move forward with an RFP process? And so that's really what we're looking at. I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Craig, to that.
No, the board's discretion on how we want to do this, but the timeline that staff has proposed is very aggressive to get this started right away.
In the advisory committee, their desire was for us to skip the RFQ and go to the RFP process as well, correct?
Correct.
Was that unanimous? Was that broke up? I don't remember.
Unanimous.
It was unanimous. Okay. Me personally, I don't see a problem with going straight to the RFP, but I don't know how the board members feel.
I do have some questions.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, Caroline.
So the document in our packet, can you tell me who authored it? The water administrator selection timeline?
That was something that I had worked on, put together with Angel and Craig.
Okay.
Let me pull that up real quick.
I just, yeah, I had some questions on it because it referenced AVIC. And I think that, again, I think we are going through this process wholeheartedly and hoping that there's, you know, as many qualified applicants as possible. And so I was just wondering, you know, there was some reference to AVIC in the document. And I just wanted for clarity to make sure that, I don't know if it's appropriate to amend at this point, but that we as a board are clear that whatever we choose to do in this process, it is to open up again, if this is going to be administered by Craig and by Todd Engineering, and that we as a board want to make sure we get all qualified candidates that are interested to come forward. And so in choosing to do so, I think that I'm not necessarily uncomfortable with skipping the RFQ process, but I just wanted to make sure that we do that with that in mind. And that perhaps I've seen it in several instances that there is a purpose for qualification, and that might be very helpful to council and the Watermaster engineer if there is an element of qualification within the RFP itself. That way, if council or the Watermaster engineer feel that someone can be disqualified because of lack of qualification, they don't have to go through the full process. So I don't necessarily see a need for the RFQ process, but perhaps putting a qualification element within the RFP would be helpful. Okay.
Yeah, I'd be good with that. Caroline, I'm just confused. Is it this timeline where AVAC is mentioned or somewhere else?
So it's in the second page on page 73 in the fast track. It mentions having AVAC submit the SOQ should be moved to
I see. Yeah.
And I want to be clear that this is not directed for AVAC. We are encouraging all qualified applicants to please enter into this process with us.
Yeah, good comments. Thank you. It's ready. Yeah, I did too. Thank you.
Mhm.
Good eye.
Good catch.
I missed that.
Can that be a motion?
What's that?
What you just said? Do we need a motion?
What I'm hearing from the board is that you would like us to include a qualifications portion within the RFP, and we could work with council to try and put that in there and bring that back to you in the advisory committee next month, if that's
I don't see a need to bring that back to the advisory. I would like for us to proceed, if possible, with moving forward with the timeline that you've put forth regarding the RFP process.
Okay.
With just an understanding that as part of the RFP, qualifications will need to be provided.
Okay.
That was my.
Yeah, I think that's a good
exactly
recommendation.
right. That's the motion.
Okay.
So do you want a motion? So we're on the Watermaster Administrator selection timeline, and it sounds like what the consensus is, we want to go straight to the request for proposals. And when we do that, we want to include a qualifications section within the request for proposal. Correct. Is that what so we would want a motion for us to go directly to request for proposals with a qualification section in the request for proposal. I think that's as simple as I can state it. And would somebody like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Carolina.
Second.
Good. Second by Angelica. Excellent. Any further discussion? And did we get that motion down right? Okay. Any discussion online? Any discussion in public? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion to go directly to request for proposals with a qualification section using the timeline on, I would imagine, page 73?
Correct.
All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. And now we're on item 13, consideration and possible action to address delinquent new producer issues. And it says administrator, but I think you're going to turn that over to Craig, right?
No, I was under the wrong impression that we were creating the firewall on the RFP process starting now. So that's why I thought
We will start it next.
All right, so this is
don't
me.
put anything about AVAC in anything. Please, Craig.
Understood. So this one, I'll start off with, and then I'm happy to have Craig jump in with anything that he feels is pertinent or that I'm missing. So Holly, can you move to the next slide? Last board meeting, let's see. Let's go back. Go to the next one, please. Last board meeting, we were directed to provide 3 options to the board as far as how to deal with replacement for the fee for being delinquent on production reports for new producers. So staff came up with 3 options that we felt like we had heard from advisory committee and from the board. One was the staff recommended option, which would kind of correct what we saw as an issue of overpayment to 80 state water contractors and under collection for the administrative costs. And that's option 1. So that's that $150 fine. I know that the advisory committee has said they were supportive of this, but if they change the word to fee, and administrative staff have no problem with that. Option 2 was essentially converting the current maximum replacement water assessment to a penalty that would cover administrative costs. So from staff's perspective, the pro of that is that it does stop the overpayment to AV state water contractors, but it may deter cooperation, especially from those that haven't put in their well and may want to just go quietly off into the night. It does over collect for the administrative fees if we go down that path. So that's option 2. Option 3 is no change. We simply keep going the way we're going now. We continue to make the penalty for being late on your production report to be paying your maximum replacement water assessments. That's the easiest as far as administrative goes, but it does not cover administrative costs and it does overpay the state water contractors. So what we did, the advisory committee had asked us to put together some flow charts just to demonstrate more simply what we were talking about. So if you go to the next slide, there you go. This might be hard to see. Hopefully you can see that. What we have here are 2 scenarios. One is our current scenario where we have a new producer, a theoretical new producer that has 2 acre-feet of water. They've only actually pumped a quarter of an acre-foot of water. They've been delinquent on their reporting. So during the process of administrating this, we estimate it costs about $100 to $200. So you can think about 2 to 5 hours of administrative work goes into trying to get this invoice paid. And I've listed those processes in that second box there. The way it works now is the admin staff would invoice for almost $1,300, of which $19 would be an administrative assessment. So that's at $9.50 times 2 for the total 2 acre feet. And a replacement water assessment of $1,272. So if the new producer comes back and provides their report, then what's going to happen is we're gonna charge them $2.38 for administrative assessments. It'll actually go down because they're gonna pay their actual administrative assessment on what they produced. They're still gonna be on the hook for the replacement water assessments of $1,272. So if we just jump ahead to that total outcome, what you end up with is $100 to $200 in lost revenue for administrative costs that have gone into the process. But you also have an overpayment to the AV State water contractors of $1,100. So that's the problem that administrative staff has been trying to solve for. And we believe the next flow chart shows how option 1 that staff is proposing solves for that. So in the same scenario, we have the same starting point. So you've got that new producer with 2 acre feet. They've been delinquent on the reporting. They've only pumped 1/4 acre foot. In this current process, would still takes about $100, $200 to get them to collect and produce their production report and all of that. We would, if we've gone through that process of sending out the invoices, sending out the late notices, and they haven't responded, then we would issue the invoice or the invoice for the $150 delinquent fee. In that case, when the new producer provides their production report, they're going to pay their $2.38 of administrative fees. They're going to pay their $150 in fee for being delinquent in the process and causing Angel and Patty to chase them down. And the net result is that the revenue is going to cover administrative expenses. So you'll pull in the $152 for revenue, and that'll cover the costs. And then they're going to pay their true replacement water costs. So they're not getting out of paying replacement water costs, but they are going to pay for the actual water they pumped and that's that $159 for the 1/4 acre foot. So hopefully that flow chart helps understand kind of the process, the administrative process that goes into it, where the money is flowing, and why staff is recommending option 1 on the previous page. But with that, we'll go to the next line. If the board would like to approve it, then we have the rules and regulations language here. And if it's acceptable, then I believe we can set up a public hearing to approve that language. I'll pause and see if Craig, if you have any feedback.
I'll just make a couple of comments. The advisory committee raised questions whether the Watermaster board has the authority to impose a fine. And my memo on page 80 and 81 addresses that we do. However, be very candid, if that's a major issue for the advisory committee, we can change the word fine to fee.
Yeah.
And that may be more helpful to get this where it needs to be. My feeling on this is we've amended 14.0 before and have addressed the issue of non-reporting by new production applicants. Apparently we set up too stringent of a requirement that it's just not realistic to have people pay their entire RWA if they don't submit production reports. But I'm old school. This is what we bargained for in the beginning, and pay your RWAs. And suck it up, and that's the way we run the business. But leave it to you as to whether you want to put this on the public agenda for comment and decision next month.
So the recommendation, it seems, is based upon your memo, you were looking at option 1, which you laid out in scenario 2.
Correct.
Right.
Thank you.
And this is also what the advisory committee voted on unanimously to approve, with the one exception, changing the word to find the fee, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure I'm all.
And all we need today is a consensus of our board to say, bring this back like this for the public hearing.
Correct.
Or we could only vote on it today.
No. Right.
Oh,
Yeah, well, and we're going to discuss it.
It's potential amendment of
I'm just
the-
trying to get us to
Right.
where recommendation is from staff is for option 1.
Correct.
And Craig seems to still want to be a bureaucrat, but he's open to option 1 too.
I'm open to change,
Yeah.
but I
Come a
feel the
long
way
way
the
since.
system we have is got a real penalty aspect to it.
Understood. Okay. Carolina, you had a question?
I have possible other options here, and maybe, so I want to have a better understanding. And maybe I can get that just through asking that question. So, for example, in option 1, where we impose, the fee of $150, which I do think is important because we have not been able, from what I understand from staff, to recover those administrative fees, which is very important for us to remain solvent. But I guess in option 1 and scenario 2, what I'm seeing is the assumption is always that we get those persons to actually pay the true amount. And so I'm concerned about what happens if we choose to move forward with option 1 and we still, in fact, this goes back to Craig's point, we still get non-responsiveness. So they're not paying the fine, and they're also, we're not getting any funds back. So can you talk to us more about what's happening? And I guess the reason why I'm to give you kind of a context, I'm concerned about removing or only having them pay what they'd like. That's fine if they come to the table, but what happens when they don't?
Okay. No, that's excellent question. So I think it was last meeting that the staff presented a revocation list. So if we do have new producers that have simply never responded and that we can't get a hold of, so their applications have been officially revoked. So in order for them to come back to the Watermaster to have a well put in, they would have to come true with anything that they've, any fines or fees that they owe. Also, now they're also treated like anyone else out in the basin who would be pumping outside of the judgment. So if we found them, they could be on the enforcement list. So regardless of which option we go with, there is likely that we're going to run into players that just never respond. And that's the revocation is that next step.
So, is there, just for argument's sake, is there possibly an option 4 where we would impose a fee and still the entire RWA amount?
That's certainly an option if the board would like to consider it.
Do you see any benefit to that? Because I understood in your scenario that means that we're overpaying into that. I'm just wondering.
I would say, just put it on an AV State water contractor hat here, that it is a little uncomfortable that the concept of paying, let's say, Palmdale Water District, AVAC, Little Rock, to put water in the ground for water that was never pumped. And so that there is some discomfort, I think, from that standpoint. It'd be more clean to just whatever was truly produced is replaced, and that's what the association is paid for.
What kinds of things that was going to be a way to make a way to make sure people understood that they were actually signing on to things. Because initially there was a feeling that, you know, I wasn't aware that I needed to do this annual reporting. Do you think that that's been curtailed in staff's most recent attempt to contact non-filers?
I think we'll find out in about a year when we go back out for invoicing. And all the new producers this year will receive that, and then we'll see how they respond. I do think it will help.
Okay. I think those are my questions.
Great. Good questions. Thank you. Any other questions? And consensus, board?
Option one, and changing the word fine to fee.
Okay.
An emotion.
No,
A
we
motion?
can't do a motion.
Not a motion.
We're getting consensus. They will bring it back to us.
Okay.
We need to do a public hearing on it.
Okay,
And
well,
would-
I agree with what she's saying.
then I'm just trying to get consensus now. So we have
Yes,
consensus.
We have consensus.
You have direction.
Yeah.
Next step, we do next meeting a public hearing.
Correct.
And do we need another meeting to approve it, or do we approve it after the public?
I believe we can prove it at the public hearing. Is that correct?
Yes, approve it at the public hearing. The motion resolution will be to amend that section as it indicates on the screen, save for the word fine being changed to fee. Okay.
That's the consensus?
Yes.
Yeah, I did say that. Okay. Very good. Anything else we need to do on item 13?
Nope. That covers it.
We'll move on to item 14, consideration possible action on transfer application. And our engineer is here live in person. Give the,
Let me interrupt for a second. Are we setting this for public hearing next month?
we are.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Go ahead, Arden.
Thank you. So the first transfer that we have today is a transfer of 228.04 acre feet from the state of Eugene Nebaker.
Arden, is your mic on?
Thank you.
I'll have mic trouble.
Hello? All right. Can y'all hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. So this first transfer is a one-time transfer of carryover water from the estate of Eugene Nebaker to Bothing Treeland Farms Incorporated. And so a little bit of background on both parties. Eugene Nebaker's estate currently does not have any production rights, but does have carryover water. And they have sufficient carryover for this transfer. His property was located in the Central Antelope subarea. And then Bothing Treeland Farms Incorporated is in the Southeast subarea. And they are the successor to Long Valley Road LP. And Long Valley Road was a small pumper who was over pumping, pumping up to about 300 acre feet a year. And following the Watermaster's guidance, became a new production party in 2023, I believe. And they have been in compliance the last few years and using transfers to cover their replacement water assessment. Yes.
You said they're the successor, so this is a new company that took over?
Yes. So this year there were 4 LPs which purchased the land that Long Valley Road was on. And
Ms. Wells, this is the attorney for Bothing Treeland Farms and formerly Long Valley Road. My name's Andrew Homer. I could answer that question if you'd like.
please go ahead.
Okay, so the Bothing Treeland Farms has always been the real party in interest there. That's the entity that formerly leased the property from Long Valley Road LP. Long Valley Road LP was a special purpose vehicle set up on that property and some other properties that Boating Treeland Farms operates its farms on around the state, and for some other issues. And that partnership, that LP, was dissolved at the end of last year. And some of the family members that were members of the limited partnership took title to the property. But there's no purchase of Boating Treeland Farms, Inc. There's no change in the actual user of the water of the property. It's all exactly the same as before. It's just a corporate reorganization.
So who's the stipulating member to the judgment then? Who joined Exhibit 4?
It was previously Long Valley Road LP as the landowner, and now the land is held jointly by 4 separate corporate entities, but Boating Treeland Farms is the applicant as the transferee on this transfer, and
okay, thank you.
Would be the.
And to clarify, they're not an Exhibit 4 party. They're a small pumper and a new production party.
That's what I was.
Sorry to interrupt, Ms. Wells.
No worries. Thank you. So this transfer would be to cover replacement water assessments for new production. And in our review of material injury, we include hydrographs in our report and found that water levels surrounding the Boating Treeland Farms property have remained relatively stable over the last few years. Some have gone up by a little, and the one that has decreased slightly has decreased by about 6 feet since 2014, but remains stable over the last 2 years. And so recognizing that this is a one-time transfer to offset replacement water obligations and does not represent new pumping, and we found the potential for material injury to be negligible. I'll note that there were concerns raised in the advisory committee regarding the, sorry, let me pull up the notes. Potentials regarding the ability of Long Valley Road to transfer the new production application to a new owner.
Craig?
Yes.
Any of that?
I think the question is whether this is a transfer or this is a successor in interest situation where the current owner steps into the shoes of the predecessor in title. They have a new production number. I don't think it would be appropriate to ask them to do another material injury analysis when the predecessor in interest had that done for the property for the application before. So
they did all their proper applications, material injury analysis was done.
Yes.
All the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed is what I'm hearing from the engineer and legal.
Correct.
This responds to the advisory committee's comment that they would approve the application contingent on the Boating Tree Farm submitting a new production application for the 300 acre feet previously held by Long Valley Road. And my opinion is a new production application is not necessary, that if they violate, if the successor in interest violates the number that's in the new production application, there will be consequences. We will be aware of that. If they don't submit production reports, there's a whole slew of other problems for them if that happens. So anyway, that's my response to the advisory committee's comment.
Rob, there's a comment from Stan Powell.
And Dennis is standing up. I'll let him take the floor first, and then Stan, I'll call on you after that.
Yeah, just to clarify, the discussion in the meeting was about having the new entity's signature on a page notarized with all the proper initials. It's the current version of that form. So that there's some direct tie for the Watermaster to be able to enforce the new production rules that they inherited.
So Dennis, am I understanding correctly, because I didn't see the document, you're telling me that somebody else's name is on the transfer document?
Long Valley. No, this is talking about the new production application that was approved for Long Valley.
Okay.
And is inherited by the new company. The committee's concern was that there's no document that has the new company's commitment to the rules that go along with new production, especially in the new format with initials and notarization. So maybe there could be a simpler process to do that without a whole application process, but that was the main concern, subject to Stan's correction.
And Craig, I guess the question on that is, can't we just do a simple document with them accepting
I guess the question is, we can do it. The question is, do we need to do it? The successor in interest steps into the shoes of the new production application. They are assumed to have knowledge of what the requirements are. I don't see the point in creating another document for them to do that. That is going to be noted by the administrator if there's a violation of the terms of the new production application. But it would be simple enough. I mean, if you want a document for this purpose, for this transaction.
Just vetting this correctly and talking through it, I'm going to use myself as a scenario.
Thank you, Dennis.
My company that I own is Calandry Farms, Inc., which is a party to Exhibit 4.
Mm-hmm.
If I die, my children become the owners of Calandry Farms, Inc. We still have enforcement because a new owner came into that entity. In this situation, I pass away, my kids are starting a new company. I don't know where we have the teeth with the new company just by successors in interest, because you have a completely different name change and you're going from one entity to another. So I think this is kind of I understand where the question comes from, because it's kind of a unique scenario. I just want to make sure we're at least vetting it and talking about it correctly, because now you went from one owner to 4 new owners. So I understand where the gray area is at a little bit. I just want to make sure we at least discuss it.
Well, and I don't think it hurts anything, because then they can't say they didn't know anything, because you're sitting down with them and saying, by you taking over this, you understand these are all of our rules, and now you're signing it.
I mean, I quite frankly would like at least a document acknowledging that they're accepting rules. They don't.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say they necessarily have to go through the entire process,
right?
But I mean, I look to you. You're our legal counsel.
Right. My response is the judgment binds successors in interest. Whether they sign a document, that might be more efficient to have such a document, but legally they have succeeded to the interests of their predecessor in title.
Even with new entities owning it.
Even with whoever the successor in interest is.
Okay.
And Stan, you had a comment?
Yes, I did, but I agree with what Dennis had to say. And I think the discussion that the board has had has raised all the issues I had concern with. So I have nothing to add at this point. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Peter?
I just want to be clear. What I'm hearing from the board is and from the advisory committee is to have them sign the previously approved form of new producers' responsibilities, not create a new form.
Yeah, I just was looking for some acknowledgement in writing that they are taking on that liability, like I had to do when I signed my documentation to become a party to the adjudication, saying that I stipulate to all the rules and regulations of the judgment and openly acknowledge that. And you have that filed in writing, and you have that as a means of enforcement if I screw up.
And we do have the attorney for the applicant on the line. You've heard the discussion. Could you comment on your thoughts about what we have been discussing? Are you still on the line?
Yeah, frustrated with you.
Dan,
his hand again?
No.
Oh, he just.
It's Andrew Homer.
Rob, I don't see Andrew Homer online anymore.
Andrew Homer?
He's a phone number.
Okay. Andrew going once?
He's back on.
Oh, Andrew, can you hear us? Andrew? Okay, so I'm trying to get a sense of what our consensus is before we go on for a vote. But do we want to go forward with a?
Rob, I'm fine with, I'm fine with going forward, but it's just, I've raised my concerns.
And it sounds, Peter, it sounds simply if we take the prior, what's the easiest solution if we want to follow the advisory committee's recommendations and through this discussion?
And I just want to be clear, I'm not making a recommendation. I'm just,
I'm not asking for one. I'm asking what you feel.
So what I'm hearing from the advisory would be to simply have them sign the new producer responsibility form that's now a part of the application package.
That would be, in my mind, that would be nice.
And would it be a signature from someone from each of the 4 entities that now own it?
It currently only requires one signature,
Well,
but we could.
It would be from whatever APN has the pumping on it.
Is it the Treeland Farm?
And Craig, would you have any concerns about that?
No, it's no harm, no foul. It's just, in my view, creating a document that didn't need to be created. But it's simple enough, it already exists. You can approve the transfer subject to this condition.
On it, an X and a date.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's just good business.
Okay. I would like us to approve this with the recommendation that we have, and I think staff can do this, not our attorney, right? That staff get this. This will be approved upon staff getting a signature on, what is the name of that form?
It's the, Angel has it.
Rob, can I make a suggestion?
Yes,
That I
please.
feel like would be really helpful. So I think it's
Make it
very,
easy for us.
yeah, I think it's really important that the Watermaster have a paper trail of these new owners.
Right.
So for this application, boating tree land, I think it would be as simple as them writing a letter saying they agree to everything in the Long Valley Road application. And when these new owners come about, we can bring it to the board so that boating tree land farms isn't a surprise to everybody. Because I feel like with the advisory committee, they were like, who is this person and how are they doing a transfer?
Right.
Nobody
Yeah.
knew the name change. And I think as long as they agree to the previous application, there's going to be no change in pumping. This is what we plan on doing. They can also sign the new responsibility form. And then these come to the board just as, no charge to the new applicant or the new owner, but just so that you know this took place.
I would like to point one thing out real quick. Angel, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to throw my dad under the bus a little bit. But when we did the transfer from to Tivoli Investments, we had to do this form.
So I feel like what Craig is saying, and I could be wrong, that this is a new, Boating Tree Land Farm is a new producer. They're only doing this transfer for their replacement water obligation. So they're not becoming a new party to the judgment. It's simply taking over a new production application. Whereas for you, you're an Exhibit 4 producer. There's different rules, is what I would think.
Good explanation. Do you want to,
Yes, I will work with Andrew, and they did send an email over explaining the situation, but I think it would be good, like I said, in the future, if this comes before the board, explaining the new owner agrees to the previous application, and we have paper trail.
so we already have a resolution that's been prepared. Do we need to make any change? We make the motion contingent upon them signing the documents?
I'll have them provide the cover letter, so maybe contingent upon a letter stating they agree to the previous application. And we can keep that on file.
I think that'd be fine. I think we're gonna need to amend it somewhat to make this work.
Can we just
Approval conditioned on a clarifying letter from the new owner.
that they're
Clarifying.
agreed to the,
Right.
okay. So we're going to get a motion to approve resolution R2526 today, hopefully, and with the addition that our staff will follow up and get a letter from the attorney or the parties that they agreed to the terms.
Previous application.
Yes, that.
There you go.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve R2526 with the condition that Angel has so nicely stated for?
So moved.
Motion made by Brandon. Is there a second?
I was, yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
Kathy won. It was very close though, but I think it's because she was closer to me. I saw her reaching
There you
the
go.
mic first. Motion made by Brandon, second by Kathy. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve R2526, which with the conditions stated, say aye. Aye. All opposed. Motion's carried unanimously. Arden, we're on R2527. Hope this was a little faster.
I think it should be, and also R2527 as well as R2528 are very, very similar applications. They're both from the same parcels going to the same parcels. So the information for this one is for the most part applicable to the next one.
So can you kind of like combine them and
Yes.
all one time?
Yes.
Great.
So R2527 is from Pamela Godey to Robertson's Ready Mix. R2528 is from Stephen and Denise Godey to Robertson's Ready Mix. And both transfers are a one-time transfer of 150 acre feet. And all of the parties involved are Exhibit 4 parties. Pamela Godey and Stephen and Denise Godey, their water originated from the same parcel in the Central Antelope sub-area, and Robertson's Ready Mix is in the Southeast Antelope sub-area. And so this is for to prevent future replacement water obligations. And so in the letter, we show the production over time from Robertson's Ready Mix compared to their ramp down and current production. And so they've been producing more than their current production rate, but over the years getting transfers to kind of continue their pre-ramp down production. And looking at water levels in the area, they're pretty close to Little Rock Creek. And so in the last few years, water levels have shot up by quite a bit near Robertson's Ready Mix. And so we do not see a potential for material injury with lowering of groundwater levels near Robertson's Ready Mix, nor is there a risk of subsidence in the area. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Any questions from the public? Any questions online?
Can we combine the two together?
No, we'll do it real fast though. Is there a motion to approve R2527? Moved by Brandon. Second by Angelica. Good. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve R2527, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion's carried unanimously. We're now on R2528. Is there a motion to approve R2528?
So moved.
Moved by Brandon.
Second.
Second by Carolina. Is there any discussion? Any discussion anywhere? All in favor of the motion to approve R2528, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Okay, good. We're now on item 15, consideration and possible action on formation of ad hoc committee for carryover storage agreements. And our general counsel will talk about
Yes,
this.
once again, the memo on this is on page 141. Last meeting in April, council presented a template storage agreement for carryover that got quite a bit of response and excitement. I think what the board moved and directed and approved was the establishment of an ad hoc committee. Director Hernandez and Director Calandri were part of that committee, and along with Mr. Lamoureux or his designee to review the storage templates and generate some recommendations for the board. The sentiment of the board was that we should abide by the Brown Act provisions. That's in the memo. The advisory committee has questions about the Brown Act applicability of this, the benefit of doing that, whether there's going to be confusion, just how it's going to work. The ad hoc committee is going to operate on the formation stage. Their comments are the main concern raised according to the advisory committee in the discussion was how will this work as a public meeting, whether advisory committee itself would be a good way to work on this issue. So this is an opportunity to discuss. We have a recommendation that the ad hoc committee meet as soon as possible. It's in the memo and it's open for discussion now.
So we've already taken the action.
We've already agreed to set up the ad hoc committee. It's not met yet that I know of.
Right. Do we need a formal action, a vote today to do anything?
Just discuss whether you continue to believe it should abide by the Brown Act provisions, whether that is not revisiting what you did last time, but there's concern about how the meetings will operate.
I think it's
and
a good
who
thing
the
to
staff's going to be for that.
Sure.
And also,
Discussion.
I'd like to hear about the advisory committee because the vote was 7-0, with 4 abstentions.
7-0, abstentions.
Correct. 4 abstentions. Reason for abstaining. Mr. Lamoureux or Mrs. Kyle, one of you.
Give it a shot.
All right, give it a shot.
I think there's just a little bit of trepidation as to how this really works, and concern over making this ad hoc committee strictly abide by the Brown Act. I think that's the basis of the abstentions. There's probably people online who could add to that.
Great. Thank you. Carolina, you had some comments?
Yeah, I have some concerns. So I want to go back to, last month when we really talked about this as a board, and I'm certainly not speaking for the entire board, but my understanding of the discussion that happened last month. And the reasoning to have work in progress and be able to move this forward with what we are finding is a fairly short time frame. But it was never to not have the entire board have discussion or be able to opine, and certainly was not for to not have both the advisory board and the public opine on it. So, but we felt that an ad hoc committee was necessary to get working products done, and that wasn't something that staff was, to do on their own, guessing, for example, what may be needed. And so to that point, I want to go back to this issue of the Brown Act, which what I think would be very restrictive and counterproductive to what was our initial intent. So it is very difficult, one, for us to meet, and two, for us to have a productive conversation in a Brown Act environment. That being said, I think it's very important that both the advisory board and the community be able to opine on whatever this board is considering. So I also noted, Craig, that in your memo, you talk about that although this ad hoc committee is temporary advisory committee, that there is, and it consists of less than a quorum, that there is an argument that this committee can be Brown Act. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to.
Correct.
And so I want to propose, or at least for discussion, that we not have the ad hoc committee be a Brown Act committee, and instead have the three parties that were mentioned here, myself, Mr. Calandri, and Mr. Lamoureux, along with staff, be able to meet, discuss, and then bring back, if this board so chooses, an agendized items for us to bring back discussion points or recommendations. And that way it can be considered by not only the advisory group, but the community at large, and they can opine on anything that the ad hoc committee brings before this board.
Heads are shaking. Carolina, I agree with you, and I think the Brown Act would make it more restrictive. I think this is an ad hoc committee because of your schedule and where you live and your schedule, where we should be able to do everything by Zoom if necessary, and we have that capability to do that. Obviously, the staff would be here. Public always invited, completely transparent. And I think the Brown Act would preclude us from doing some of this on Zoom. And I certainly would like us to schedule them far enough in advance so that everyone, and it goes out on our webpage, what the schedule is. And maybe when you get together for a first time, try to put together a schedule that can, is whatever frequency the three of you think are necessary, and make it public, make it transparent, use Zoom. And I think if we adopt those, and I wouldn't even say rules, let you kind of make the rules, but understanding, I think both of you understand how transparent this needs to be, and to include the advisory committee. If they want to attend by Zoom, so be it. And obviously bring back recommendations to the board, then we discuss those. There would be a public meeting before we would adopt anything, and the advisory committee would be on board for each phase of it. That's how I envision it.
I think I want to make a distinction, though, Mr. Chair, is that the ad hoc committee is really there, and really what this board chose was for us to make a discussion and make recommendations. I don't have any problem with others attending the meeting virtually or what have you, but my concern is that it's not for everybody to opine at that meeting. It will not be a productive meeting if the public at large is going to be opining as we try to get, it would be, or we might as well have it here.
Yeah.
So I just want to be very clear that it's not to have an open meeting. The ad hoc meeting would be very specific to this task, and would be the fundamentally for the three of us with staff support to have discussions regarding this specific subject, which is carryover storage agreements. And then we bring it back here, and this is a public forum for discussion by all, and that allows, when it's agendized, for the advisory committee and all of the public to opine.
I buy that.
Okay.
You're exactly right. I kind of see it as you guys working together. If the public wants to watch that process, I'm sure we're going to get input any other way, but I just want this to run as smoothly and as efficiently as possible. I can foresee, I don't want to see our board meetings be 2 or 3 board meetings just on this topic. I think that's the reason for the ad hoc committee to come up with recommendations.
Can I make a comment based on what you just said?
Yes.
So it's a catch-22, because if you are able to have the public make comments during the ad hoc committee, then you can streamline and make it more efficient when we come to the board. More of a summary than if we wait to come to the board and have the public give opinions. And I mean, that's just my.
Yeah, I've concerned, to reply to your comment, you cannot work as an ad hoc committee and be able to initiate the throwing out of ideas when there is opining from everyone and anyone about what they want to see on it. And so I think the idea, just like we had with council with a first draft of what an agreement was to look at, that it is very difficult for the public to opine on things when there is no structure or nothing for them to opine on. We're not, as an ad hoc committee, I didn't understand that we were getting together just to hear out people's viewpoints. I don't know that that would be a committee that I would be ready to be on, quite frankly.
I brought it up to try to expedite this process. I have trust in the three of you to figure out how you want to run your ad hoc committee. I don't think we need to figure that out for you right now. Dennis or his designee certainly will be carrying the advisory committee's views back to the ad hoc committee, and that's the reason for a landowner and a public water provider to be on it. The idea is to expedite this. So the three of you get together, figure out how you want to do that, make the rules consistent with, at least there's transparency, and go for it.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to add is ad hoc committees, under the Brown Act, don't have to follow the Brown Act, but can.
That's true.
So we can have some meetings that are more workshop to generate something to have people look at, and we can have some meetings possibly that are open to the public and get a lot of that comment before coming to these meetings to get more comment.
However you guys want to do it. And
so it's not black and white.
Yeah, but
we can mix it up.
But Craig, we don't have to go by the Brown Act. So
Correct.
You guys figure it out. You all know how to run many meetings and have in the past many meetings. I have great faith that you guys will figure out the best way to do it and start your meetings. Is that okay?
Yeah, I just wanted to see if there's a way to push the ball up court before June. Do we want to talk about an initial meeting of the ad hoc committee now, or just leave that to?
Sure. When can you guys have your first meeting?
I don't think we can have that discussion now, and I don't think it's appropriate that the three of us.
Can the three of you talk and figure out your schedules and put together a schedule of meetings as quickly as possible? And since Dennis has, he probably doesn't have a lot. Carolina, you have the largest staff. Can you?
I don't think that that's a qualification, Mr. Chair. I think that what we agreed to here is that we're also, at least the two of us are members of this board,
yes,
and that we were going to be supported by administrative staff.
Yes, that is right.
So I have no problem providing my schedule to administrative staff.
Perfect.
And we can coordinate that way.
Perfect.
Can I suggest something? And I know that everyone's busy, and I'm just throwing it out there based on what Dennis just said. So the ad hoc committee meets, you talk, you come up with ideas, suggestions, and right after your meeting, you can call a workshop so that you have feedback from the public prior to coming to the board. That would be a meeting and a workshop in a month.
I think that that's something we could all consider. That is not something I would favor, I would tell you. And I don't, and I want to be very transparent about it, is that again, we are already as a group being pushed to be very timely. My time is very valuable, as is all of ours. And so if this means that means 3 meetings for the ad hoc committee, if you include this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is excessive. And I think that might be counter to one. I don't know if I can make that commitment in terms of timing. And two, I don't know that it's necessary because again, my perspective is that not to shield this board from comments from community and the advisory committee. I think it is the responsibility of this board to entertain what the carryover storage agreement is. The ad hoc committee is agreeing to bring forth product for consideration, not for vetting all issues with the community prior to it coming to this board. That is my opinion.
Yeah, I'm looking for recommendations that we can work through, and our process, it will be public. Our process will be completely open. We will have a public meeting before we do make the final decision, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I have a question.
sure.
But what involvement would the legal counsel and the Watermaster engineer have with this ad hoc committee?
So what I envision is that we would seek the guidance of the engineer when we're making recommendations on what this forum would have that would be pertinent to the best management of the basin. That's one. Council, we would need to know if it is legal. For example, Brandon or I or Dennis might make a recommendation as to what needs to be provided on the form, and it may not be sufficient or may not be legal in terms of what should be actually on the form or is in keeping with the judgment. Those are just two examples.
Well, I mean, I gotta ask this question just out of due diligence. If Craig's gonna be here, Arden's gonna be here, Peter's gonna be here, we got all the staff here, why don't we just have a special board meeting?
Because I'm guessing that you will be doing this by Zoom and people will be in different places. And I think it's going to be more efficient for the three of you to come up with recommendations that have been vetted and go forward. Okay. I think to take even a special board meeting, this isn't going to be done in one meeting. And I want, a lot of care to be taken to come up with really good recommendations to us. So, and I think the three of you are in the best position to do so. So I don't want to limit you. Staff will work with you to figure out a schedule and you guys figure it out.
Yeah, the only other comment comes to mind is June seems like a kind of an artificial deadline. I think these have to be ready to be used by the producers by the end of 26.
Mm-hmm.
So a year and a half from now.
A year and a half from now, yeah. Where did the June deadline?
I mentioned June as the time to have the first meeting to
yeah.
report on.
Or a couple of meetings, yeah.
Yeah, that there's no deadline to get stuff back to us.
No, I just want to make it clear that
we're
trying to do it.
Good point.
We're going to wait
a
till
good
July
job
for
of
you to
this
bring us
and
all the
not try and rush it.
Yeah, no. I had no vision that this would happen in June or July. You guys, I have full faith. We'll take it from here. Staff support the scheduling, and can we move on?
I do want to recognize what both Brandon and Hanika said, if I may. And I do know in here that you say that there can be a special board meeting for receiving feedback. So perhaps, and again, another issue for consideration is in trying to understand, trying to be transparent, and also the fact that this board will make the determination ultimately. Perhaps when we do come, if we feel that it is too heavy an agenda for a typical board meeting, that there would be, after the ad hoc committee has a recommendation to provide, there may be a necessity for several special board meetings if necessary, just on that topic. And that would allow
The
for
public to be
specific focus only on that agenda item. If we feel that our other regular monthly agendas are too full for this kind of robust discussion.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's a good recommendation, and we'll see how it goes. Everybody has direction. Peter, you understand where we're going, Angel? Okay, great. Thank you. Good discussion. Go ad hoc. Administrators report, update on administrators' activities.
All right. Craig, no, I'm just kidding. All right. So just a
I'd be
couple.
glad to report it for the administrator.
And Peter's going to the attorney.
All right, so just a couple things I want to highlight here. Starting in June, we're going to begin the process of invoicing the small pumpers. So that's every 5 years. Kind of hard to believe we're back around to that time again. Angel and Patty and I will be working on that. We'll be collecting those invoices in July. Also want to note that based on the board's decision about RFP, we'll work to make the changes to the RFP and then get that out as quickly as possible, probably early June at this point. And then we'll angle to have potential presentations based on the proposals in July. And that's, one more thing I want to bring up. In July, there's an RFP for audit. So we're going to bring a board action or something for you to consider. We are going to propose that we go out for an RFP for auditor at that time. So just be aware that that's coming. And that's it for us.
Great, good. Watermaster engineer, Arden, live, in person, go.
Thank you. And first, I just want to note that I had prepared slides with an update of some of the annual report results, but I realized that it's not on the agenda. And this is something that our plan last year, we shared the results over 3 months. And, you know, if we're in a time crunch, we're happy to share those next month, if that's more appropriate.
How long will it take?
Probably 5 to 10 minutes.
We have 5 to 10 minutes to look at that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So on the next slide, this is our summary of new production and qualified small pumpers. And this looks a little different from tables over the last few years because we've added a new column splitting between the total active new production results and the total revoked new production. So we're still tracking the total amount that had been approved for applications that were revoked, but we're sort of separating them, recognizing that these are parties who have not been reporting and could face enforcement if they are reporting or if they are pumping and not reporting. Are there any questions about this? Well, on to the next. So my slides got a little bit mixed up. This is actually item D. Is it okay to skip ahead to?
It's your report, Arden. Go ahead.
Fantastic. So for item D, one question that was raised in last month was a question of how much of our total carryover water is from imported water return flows. So we ran the numbers and looked for each annual report, how much water of either production or imported water return flows went to carryover, and found that 28.6% of all carryover water accrued has been from unused imported water return flows. Once it's carryover, it's all treated the same. And I thought it was also important to keep in mind that there is a specified order in our current accounting system, which was determined by the board during the development of the rules and regulations on the order that water is used. First, all of the parties' production rights are used for a given year's production. Then for Exhibit 3 party, it goes to unused federal reserved rights. Then current year imported water return flows are used. And then if there's still production in that year greater than all three of those, then the carryover and transfer water is used. And I just included this to point out that imported water return flows go to carryover if any party has pumped less than the sum of their production rights for that year and their unused federal reserve rights.
do they have to do a material injury analysis before getting into the carryover water?
No, not for individual parties with their own imported water return flows. Hearing no questions, wanted to provide an update on our meter and production reporting app. So we were approved for this year budget to work on developing our data structure and an app to make meter and production reporting much easier for the parties, as well as more streamlined and efficient on both the Watermaster engineers side and also to assist the Watermaster admin staff with production and reporting. So an update on the work that we have done so far. The first one is digitizing 2024 data and designing a data structure. So as we're going through what has been reported for monthly and quarterly meter reportings, where parties include a photo of their totalizers and the totalizer reading. We're also thinking about what are the different rooms for error in reporting and what are important questions that we need to ask the parties. And then we've been identifying the most effective way to link the quarterly metering reports with our annual production reports. Because right now parties are submitting their monthly or quarterly metering and production, but we aren't able to verify it in time for when we get the annual production reports. So we're just trusting what everyone is reporting for their annual production. And then we developed our vision for how to streamline this metering and production process in order to maximize the compliance and accuracy while also trying to make it as efficient as possible. And that includes digitizing or automating what we can automate and digitizing things as efficiently as possible to cut down on our time to administer the program. So the next slide, our original plan was to use Google AppSheet, and we did another review of different options and costs and do still believe that Google AppSheet is the most efficient and cost-efficient way to go about this when you factor in our time. But I did realize that there are fees associated with it. And we wanted to be fully transparent with y'all before moving forward with choosing and continuing to work on this platform, recognizing that there would be year-to-year fees. And so we've paused development until we confirm that this is the appropriate platform to use. So the next slide, we spent some time thinking about what are we doing right now and what are the potential rooms for error. So this figure to the left is really showing the breakdown of all of the different steps that these data go through. And right now, we don't have the annual production and the quarterly and monthly reporting closely linked. As you can see in purple on the top, on the landowner side, they're going out to their field, taking their photo, writing down their data, calculating for the annual reporting what the production is based off of those readings, doing a whole annual report, as well as for their monthly data to the right, either having to fill out the form at their computer or scan it, or in some cases, folks feel more comfortable snail mailing it. And then on our end, we're spending time going through our emails, organizing the files. Then if we want to utilize that quarterly and annual production data, we're manually digitizing the data. And then if we want to compare it to our annual totals, the annual data has gone through its own journey. To the Watermaster admin staff, they have to manually tabulate it, send it to us. We process and review everything, and there's some back and forth there. And there's just a lot of steps and room for error. Our current budget only has room to sort of spot check very suspicious monthly and quarterly reporting that doesn't match the annual reporting, but often we don't have the time to do that in time for the annual report because we would have to digitize everything. And we note that because this is a higher effort for parties, there is likely lower compliance because of this. On the next slide, our vision for streamlining the data is that the landowners can go out and take a photo within the meter reporting app, type in the totalizer reading, and then it is able to go through app sheets into a spreadsheet that then we have automated to tabulate the production and be formatted to go into our database, because you're putting the well's information matched to the specific well. It's going in the right box and fitting in with our database processing. And then that is linked to our overall groundwater accounting database, as well as the ability to produce production summary reports. So folks can just submit their totalizer readings, but we can provide back what the production to date, year to date, has been for each party. And they can either say in time for the annual report, yes, your numbers look good, or actually something is off, this is why. And so within the app, they have the option to submit their annual production report and either just say, okay, check, let's use this number, or provide their own production. And we also want to make sure that for parties who aren't comfortable using the app, there still is the ability to continue reporting in the way that they have been. So the next slide. We have found that Google Apps Sheet is the most effective and efficient program to use because of both its functionality as well as its security and versatility. So the parties can submit their production data, meter report, photos, and annual production through it, and easily select a list of their known wells to report from, view the data that we have on their wells, keeping consistent units, and also go back and view what have they submitted with the app, view their production rights and carryover information, and view their calculated production to date. And then this runs on Android and iPhone apps, desktop computers, and tablet apps, and uses a secure sign-in with a password, as similar to the ways that other Google products have their sign-ins. So the costs that they would charge are $5 per user per month. And so when you scale that up to 100 users, that goes up to $6,000 a year. And for 200 users, could be $12,000 a year if everyone is monthly using the app. And that's very much on the high end of anticipated use. So we want to be transparent about these costs. On the next slide, this is what we had presented when we did the original proposal to have the funding to develop the integrated database and the reporting application. And so this is the time that it would take for the full integration of meter reporting and annual production. On the middle column is with the current methods that we have, all of the time that would take to fully digitize everything and have the data ready for use. And that's a budget of $36,750 a year estimated in our time, noting that over the years, we expect our rates to increase with inflation. On the right, this is the budget, the time budget that was included in our current contract for next year and the following year, where we estimate about 55 hours a year to fully administer the metering, production, and reporting program. And so realizing that these fees exist, estimating about 135 parties are using the app, that would be an additional $8,400 a year in fees. And the total time and fee would still be less than what it would take to fully integrate meter and annual reporting with the current method. So the next slide is just sort of to wrap this up. Our request for direction is, should we move forward with using this program, recognizing that there may be annual fees? There are annual fees associated with it. And what additional information would be helpful for us to provide? Thank you.
I know a lot of landowners that are currently working on turning in their sheets and the process they go through. I will admit there's a little bit of a bust in my bubble knowing that we've just spent 8 years getting them accustomed to a process, and the thought of changing that is going to be painful. And it's just, but I acknowledge the efficiencies that are gained through that, and it's something we probably need to look at. I just wonder if there's some other options that are maybe a little bit more cost effective that we could hear back from you on, and just how that would work.
Yes. So the other option we kind of identified would be to use a much more simple digital form, either a digital PDF or Google form, which would be very similar to what we have now, but data could more automatically be sent into the database. So there would be additional time on our end that it would take to get the data moved, or make sure that the data submitted through the digital form is going into the right box and integrating smoothly with our database. We still would be able to develop a more automated calculation and reporting system that would be helpful, but it would require more time on our end. There also would be less communication back with we could less easily communicate back with the reporters. So sort of the back and forth of, is this calculated production correct, would be more difficult to actualize.
The one sounds like it's more streamlined than the other.
That's correct.
I'd like to hear from others here about, kind of the user, and you talked a little bit about that, Brandy, but on Helica too, is there, because I do see this cost savings here, obviously, and not just the cost savings, but our need to be able to better tabulate more accurate information more timely. But I do sympathize with this. This would be something else if it was something put on me, for example, that I'd have to get this app and coordinate. So I'd like to hear just, do you think if we had a transition period, because I hear that there's this option.
That's what I was thinking.
What do you think?
Because it's easy I'm behind a desk. That's what I do.
Yeah.
But when that's not what you do, and you're not used to all these apps, etc., it's hard. It's very hard and very frustrating. So if we can phase it out, a phase 1 and a phase 2. Phase 1 would be something simpler, like what you explained, the second option. And we can start with that and slowly take it to the next level. I think it would be easier than just to jump right off the bat to something a little bit more complicated.
And that's when I say that, that's what I worry about. I know some of our people, there's some mutual water companies that you don't have a staff that is running. It's some of the volunteers in the neighborhood that are going to the mutual water companies, filling out this paperwork and doing this stuff. It's easier for somebody like myself or Tahoe or you guys in District 40 in Palmdale because you have staff to support that. But when you have some of these different individuals or some of these farmers that are out there that I know some of them that have never had a computer on their desk, send an email or even a fax for that matter, and they're literally going out there and they're pen and paper people. So I acknowledge for our jobs is to do what's in the best interest of the Watermaster, and we need to try and adapt those efficiencies and save costs wherever possible. We just do need to acknowledge and have some sympathy in the fact there's going to be some growing pains with doing something like this.
Well, I definitely understand that, because when you have to take on something like when your husband dies and all the things you have to take on that you never did before, you're just like, I don't know how to run the frickin' pool thing, and you think you just throw that thing in there and it runs the pool and you blow up the motor because you're supposed to sink it in the water. You didn't know, it looked easy.
There was an older gentleman that asked for my help on getting his stuff filled out, and he was absolutely astonished when I showed him he had a camera in his phone because he was trying to run out how to get the picture done. So I just think about some of the people that, aren't quite up to speed on the apps and the new age technology and the things that are available to them. I just want to make sure that it's well acknowledged that we'll have some growing pains.
Yeah.
We have sympathy.
We don't want it to be,
Fortunately, a lot of it's going to fall on Angel because.
yeah.
But Angel, do you agree with what I'm saying? I mean, I'd love to hear your perspective on it.
I do agree, Brandon. I also think that a lot of these new producers have no idea what a meter is. So it would be super helpful if they had an app that they could just take a picture, punch in numbers. So I see it from both sides.
And it sounded to me, Arden, in your presentation that you were going to leave the old process in place for a while too. Was that right? Or
Yes. Our plan is to encourage as many folks
Right.
as possible to use the new process, but still, the priority is making sure that everyone is reporting.
exactly.
And
So it seems to me that's built into the process rather than phase. I mean, it seems this is well thought out. We should go to what the best, easiest process is for collecting the data, but leave the old process in place for some time, allow people to adjust rather than have a stage in between. And then over time, we can provide, I would imagine, training or help with this, but it seems that you have it worked out. The 6,000 to 12,000, that will be a Watermaster expense, not a user expense. Is that right?
that is what we believe. Yeah.
Okay, so we're
Number of users.
number of you. I just don't want Julie, I don't want you to think you're going to be paying $5 a month yourself.
Is it $5 a month per well, I've got 10 wells, so is it $50 extra a month?
Good question. Why don't you come up? I think you'd be good just for a minute to help us with some of this because.
I think a cost analysis would be good. I mean, that
Yes,
would be
I
very
agree with
helpful.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there going to be a cost to Julie or are we bearing the cost and she's going to be learning how to use the product if she wants to?
I believe that it would be most efficient to have the Watermaster cover the cost. And this is noting that it's really, the fee is being paid, but less time on our ends and less fees towards the Watermaster engineer.
So it's a net savings for all the parties who have to pay.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And it's by user, not by wells. And so one of the reasons why we didn't go for one of the off-the-shelf meter reporting apps is because they charge per well about $100 a year per well. And so this is more efficient and can be specially tailored.
So you've already priced this out and have brought us a recommendation, which is in your mind the least expensive and the easiest to use, and we'll do what we need it to do.
That's correct.
Okay.
So like the advisory group.
We're holding Julie up there. Do you have a question?
Well, it is
Okay,
a
good.
question for her. Like as a whole, you guys kind of help each other out. So you kind of could help each other out with learning this, right?
Yes, well, I can say for us personally, between Galen and I, it would be rough for Galen because he's not, I love him dearly, but he's not computer savvy. And I'm not saying I'm the best, but for him, I don't know what we do. So he just needs to keep propping me up. Let's put it that way.
Can I will tell you that Arden showed me the app yesterday, and I think it is very user friendly. It is, you put in once you're in the app, you put in your password and you get in there, your wells are right there. And it tells you step by step basically what to do. Has a little camera there, take the picture and send. I mean, it is step 1, 2, 3, 4. I thought it was, and we sat and looked at it for maybe 5 minutes or so. And I was amazed at how user friendly it was. Because once the information is put in there, and that's going to be them putting it in there for you, you're going to have well 1, well 2, well 3. You're going to know where those wells are, and you're just going to click it. You're not going to have to be putting in all that information again as to the location of the well. And the well ID is just going to be reading, picture, send.
And it doesn't matter on that part for anybody else, but I know for us personally, we'll stick to the old way as well. So I have backup in the office for Galen. And then, I mean, we can learn it for sure. And anybody that would need my help, I can do whatever I can.
And I think we do a workshop for
Yeah.
the advisory committee, everybody, and I think you're on the right track. So
Excellent, thank you.
I
Julie,
just have one more clarifying question, just for clarity. Again, when you talk
you
about,
can go back,
I'm
yes.
sorry, Phil. Thank you.
Go sit down, please.
The $5 per person per month is really could be $5 per agency, like in other words, per month. So there is one like log on and one password. So for example, if you're a large agency, you can have multiple people utilizing this application.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, with one $5 charge.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. Good question. Okay.
So how much are we saving? Can you show us the table that you had there?
So this would be the about $15,000, $16,000. However, this is the estimate of hours if we were to do everything fully to integrate them with the current process. And so right now we have the budget approved, assuming for the Watermaster engineer, 2026 and 2027, assuming that we're spending about 55 hours a year on this.
The potential is $16,800 worth of savings.
Correct.
But the data is going to be easier to use and easier to work with, and hopefully give you the ability to know what's going on out there better.
Yes,
That's
and hopefully incentivizing reporting and making it easier for everyone.
Which is most important. So, okay. Anything else in your
I
report?
have one more question.
Oh, go ahead.
So what makes the difference between the annual fee of $6,000 to $12,000? What would determine?
It would be the number of parties who use it regularly.
Okay, thank you.
And since we're on this, I'm sorry, just one more thing that is pretty is, will this help us keep up to speed on meter calibrations? Because we're required to do that. Is it every 3
to 3 years?
I can't remember how many years. I think it's every 3, right?
It's 3 years for calibration and 1 year for testing. And to be honest, we have not been closely tracking the testing and calibration because we know that it has been difficult for many parties to regularly get those calibrated and tested.
Yeah, it is a little bit of trouble to do that, but
So this will tell them when they're supposed to?
well,
Yeah,
they'll track it.
we could include an every status, right, of where they're at for that.
Because it's important.
Yeah.
Okay, need to move along. Let's
Thank
go.
you. So I think the next item on the list is, I could go through the annual report or we have the de minimis discussion. Is there a preference for which?
Maybe we should get to the
As quickly as you can.
I'll go through the annual report quickly.
Okay.
Yes. So we are hard at work for our draft 2024 annual report. We have a picture of last year's here, and this was an above normal water year following a wet year. And one important thing to note for this year is that we have a water balance section. We're using the model for our total water budget, water going in and out of the basin, and we'll break it down by different sources. So be on the lookout for that. This is, a reminder that we have the native safe yield in the basin. That's the pie that's divided, but there's also other sources of production categories, our imported water return flows, use of carryover water, noting that there are parties with other rights to produce groundwater outside of the basin, and the new production parties within additional production. So next slide. For 2024, the production total for those parties with production rights was 62,114 acre feet. And then when you include production from either new production parties, which pay replacement water assessments, or non-stipulating other parties, there's a total of 68,895 acre feet that were produced. And then if we subtract the total recovered stored water, then that puts 63,501 acre feet produced in 2024. And the next slide shows the comparison of this versus previous years. So as with last year, and really since 2019, if you exclude the use of the recovery of stored water, the production has been beneath that native safe yield of 82,300 acre feet per year. And we see that there's slightly more production than in 2023. There's a general trend that when there's a lot of water available from a wet year or a very high state water project allocation, folks take advantage of that and use that water. So it's still relatively low this year, but slightly higher than the very wet year in 2023. The next slide is our summary of the imported water and recharge. So there was a 40% Table A allocation, and quite a bit of recharge occurred at Westside Water Bank, Little Rock Creek Pilot Project, and Upper Amargosa Creek. And this does not include the water that was stored by Metropolitan at High Desert Water Bank. Next slide. Each year, our annual report includes our groundwater elevation contours. And these don't tend to change too much on this bird's eye view because it's showing the big picture and there aren't huge changes in the overall direction of groundwater flow. However, on the next slide, if you look at the changes in water levels from spring 2024 to spring 2025, there's a few observations that I want to point out. The purpley blue is areas with a big increase, and the orangey brown is areas with decreasing water levels. So first on the next slide, I'll point out that red circle is showing recharge near the Upper Amargosa Creek. And so some of this area is purple because there's mountain front recharge coming in and smaller little washes in the area providing recharge. But there was quite a bit of recharge, especially in the later half of 2024 and early 2025 at that facility that's showing an increase in water levels in the surrounding monitoring wells. The next place on the next slide is looking at the area at Little Rock Creek and especially west of Little Rock Creek. We see increasing water levels really in this whole area, which means that the recharge from that project is getting to production wells in the area. And then the last area I want to point out is this is really the one area where we see a big decrease, but this is sort of my fear not statement because this is comparing 2024 to 2025 in the spring. And so from 2022 to 2023 at this area that looks lower, there was an increase of almost 40 feet in the groundwater level. And then between 2024 and 2025, it decreased by about 19 feet. And there's a pretty active well there. And so this doesn't mean that there are big declines in the water level. It means that there was a huge increase from the recharge mounds, and then the production well is using that water that was recharged. And so that wraps up the annual report presentation.
Great.
Thank you.
Good job.
Are there any
That
questions?
was quick. Any questions?
No.
No, good. End of your report, or are we?
There's the de minimis discussion.
Okay. How long?
Briefly on our end, we included a memo that really looks at a few considerations for declaring new production to be de minimis. We looked at the total volume of water that could be pumped without replacement water assessments. And really, we see that even though most of the new production wells are single-family homes that would be considered de minimis, there 61 parties would qualify for this if we're looking up to 3 acre-feet per year, but that's only 82.15 acre-feet per year of total new production out of about 800 cumulative volume of new production. For the impacts to basin, this would be production that is outside of the native safe yield. However, it's dispersed throughout the basin, and on average, the single family home small pumpers are using about 1.2 acre feet per year in a study that was done for the adjudication. And so this is pretty low pumping rates scattered throughout the basin, which would not lead to declining groundwater levels. And then we wanted to distinguish between RWA payment versus non-reporting and emphasize that it is still important to report total production because that's how we hold folks accountable. Thank you.
Any questions?
I would just know that there was strong opposition to this recommendation or by the advisory committee.
Yeah, I saw that. And
the only thing I would add is we looked at the question whether the engineer has the authority under the judgment to waive RWAs for single domestic household, and they do. So this is not outside the terms of the judgment. This is thought about and included in there. And then I was going to mention, Director Hernandez mentioned it, the advisory committee was adamant and had a number of different arguments with respect to this de minimis vote. So keep that in mind. It was an 8-0 or 11-0 vote.
And Peter, are we looking at other options or where are we at?
We don't have any other options at this time. So we just wanted to tee it up because it is within the judgment to allow for that. From an administrative standpoint, if we reduce some burden in trying to collect on waste and water assessments, but I think that's kind of.
Any other discussion on this side? Seeing none, Craig.
Is there
Attorney's report?
Sorry?
Council's report?
Oh, and it's all in closed session.
Okay. Board members, any future agenda items? Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Moved by Cassie. Second by Brandon. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to go into closed session, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion's carried. Why don't we get into closed session in the next 5 minutes? Does that give everybody enough time?
Sure.
Great. Thank you.
Very